Hey, this is Anney
and Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And today's episode is based on my current life status. Annie, things are not wonderful here in Samland, just to be real honest. Your girl is on arthritis meds, eye meds due to some type of contact-related infection. Y'all, I haven't been able to wear my contacts, and my glasses are odd, and everything's a little blurry and a little too intensive. Everything's fine. And yes, I have isolated myself for a few weeks now. My partner has been gone doing family emergency things, so I am really alone. And my physical and social outlet is temporarily on hiatus because other people want to go on vacation. JK, I'm proud of them. You do you. Go on that vacation. Anyway, so it feels a bit bleak over here in, again, Samland. I know this is starting to sound like a bitch and whine, but it isn't. I promise I'm going somewhere with this actual episode. You know how we do. We get some things that are a little more researched. This is not as heavily researched as a typical episode because we are still reeling from the Dragon Con birthday, holidays, and then more chaos as it goes. But I thought I would talk about what I just went down this little rabbit hole of how women may handle stress and then also self-soothing and comfort habits. Now, I am bringing in this term self-soothing and comfort habits. I'm going to interchange those words and terms, and I'm not necessarily being completely scientific when I'm talking about these things. And we are more talking about the habits or rituals as opposed to like stimming or fidget tools and all of that. So we're not going into that route, which I think we should come back and talk about because I did have an interesting video pop up in a woman talking about, I think like she's celebrating her 150 days of not self-harming. And then also about stimming and about that little cause of pain, whether it's like flicking with a rubber band or like the stimming is like has pokey things that you can actually squeeze to get a little bit of that sensation. I do want to come back to that because I do find that phenomenon something that we should talk about, especially in a time of stress and kind of self-soothing as it is related to therapy. The both negative and positive. But we're not necessarily talking about that. We're going to get a little bit into that, as in like research into that, but not those techniques or ideals. Because also it's becoming a marketing thing. And I feel like, again, we should talk about it, but this is not that episode. We're going to talk more about like habits such as weighted blankets or the habits about watching movies or me isolating myself and watching Ratatouille for the 1500th time. Or now K-pop Demon Hunter for the 100th time. That's become my new thing. But anyway, so with that, I thought we would talk a little bit about that. And I know, again, we talked about this before, rewatching the same shows, eating the food from childhood, etc. But I was also thinking about the desire to dig into something, whether it's a new hobby of, punch needling. By the way, I'm getting back to that because the holidays are coming and some people are going to get some homemade things. I feel like Katie rejected my coaster and I'm a little hurt by this. I'm just kidding. She didn't. She didn't, y'all. But I did leave that out and she left it behind. I was like, oh, okay. I'm gonna hold on to this. But that is coming back, Annie, because, who doesn't love homemade coasters that kind of resemble something? And then even the nostalgic revisits of childhood classics, which we did last month. And I still think about a lot of those because I started to see videos about Steel Magnolias. I was like, oh, yeah. And you've never seen this, right?
No. Which
I find interesting. But anyway, moving on. In fact, again, so we just had an episode yesterday, but we're recording it in the same day, about all the things that you saw at Dragon Con and your experience. And the things I saw, again, I saw many like throwbacks, whether it was Ghostbusters, lots of Ghostbusters I saw, Teletubbies, whether they're creepy or not, The Mummy, Back to the Future. And I know Christopher Lloyd was there, so I wonder if that was an ode to him, but I saw a lot of Back to the Future there. And I was like,
I saw Christopher Lloyd.
Did you? Did you
yes. No. Oh. He doesn't know who I am.
So you guys say he doesn't care. He knows people don't know who they know him. He doesn't know them. Like that's the thing. You could say hi. And also, again, reminiscing with the actors who you loved as children during Dragon Con. I saw like many actors. Did any of the Lord of the Rings people come through? I thought I saw maybe they were coming through. And I thought I saw some people from Buffy coming through.
David Boreanaz was there. There was a big Bones contingent.
Oh, see, that was not my thing.
Me either, but I know that he was there more for Bones than for Angels. Simon Pegg was there, and he was there for a bunch of stuff.
Simon Pegg was there? That's big.
Yeah, John Boyega was there.
Big names, yeah.
Ardith Bay from The Mummy.
Yeah.
Definitely people were excited about. Also, I have to say, I saw some Last Unicorn cosplay and merchandise.
Oh, interesting. So this just brought me back to these things, like where childhood things feel comforting. And it all came back to how the older generations have made new habits for self-soothing or comfort. And I just started to wonder, what is this actually? What does it look like on the gender line? What does it look like when it comes to just reminiscing? And how is it healthy or unhealthy? So I will say right here, we do mention obesity and eating habits. I don't think we go into anything specific. There are some technical terms that I'm going to struggle through, but nothing big. But just so you know, and drug use and alcohol. Just mentions. We're not really getting into it. So before we get into all that, let's talk about what self-soothing is. And this is from the Oxford Language, outside of its reference to children, which we'll kind of mention here in a little bit. But it is enabling a person to comfort themselves when unhappy or distressed. So it's very simple, essentially. It's a way to find a way to be okay. Right? Again, from the shoalhavenpsychology.com, they kind of go into it deeper, saying self-soothing refers to any behavior an individual uses to regulate their emotional state by themselves. Self-soothing behaviors are identifiable across the lifespan. So as mentioned above, a majority of the conversation around self-soothing is about children or infants, with the idea that they are self-soothing as a habit, again, introduced to infants. For example, the use of pacifiers or sucking on their thumbs, having a blanket or a toy that they have to have at all times. I've also seen it in, not to compare, but like dogs, when they get overly anxious and excited, they have like something in their mouth at all times to not overreact. But that's also a form of self-soothing as well. But here we are referencing the acts of habit, such as watching comfort shows. Again, weighted animals or blankets, stress balls, fidget gadgets, etc. as adults, or habits or rituals that we have. So again, we're not really talking about specific items like fidgets or stimming. That's a whole different thing. Again, I think we do need to come back to talk about, especially as we're talking about our mental health.
Yeah.
It's not good, Anney. I'm not good. I'm doing fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
You're giving me mixed messages.
I think that is also a part of self-soothing, right? Pretending like everything is just fine.
Yeah.
As like E. Jean Carroll told us, it's okay, laugh through it. Am I right?
Yeah. And I think there's a part of at least for me, things can feel very small. So like one of the things I'll do is I'll put on like really comfy socks and I'll read fan fiction. And there's a part of myself that has to tell me like, this is the best thing ever. Like I'm having the best time. And I am having a great time. But a part of it is kind of hyping it up to like, everything's fine. I've got my soft socks and my fan fiction. It's okay.
We're okay. We are okay. Like whispering really violently to yourself. But yeah, but again, so the self-soothing idea, I think it's been more correlated in the past with children, infants, teaching them to like be okay, that whole like crying it out type of thing, which by the way, is back and forth. I've seen different. I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but there's a lot of debate in that. But it does have a lot of reference to infants and childhood. And maybe this is why when we talk about comfort habits or self-soothing, it could be seen as feminized, maybe, or because of its association, again, with children and infants, a way of feeling infantilized through these habits. And again, some of our self-soothing is loving something, being a fan of something, finding a moment to maybe find that fanfic. If you're a huge into K-pop, there's a lot of people who really like Wattpad, which I did not know was a thing until you referenced it. And then friend Marissa, friend of the show, was like, yeah, a lot of K-pop fan fiction happens there. I was like, what? And I've seen that in reference. But like that can be an like way of self-soothing. Like you're trying to go into a fantasy world and something that you love. And a lot of it feels infantilized when we like make jokes of it or say, oh, these are these girls, all these things. Again, it's interesting. And you know what? We're not the only one. We've talked about this repeatedly. Here's a quote from HofstraChronicle.com, and she talks about her love of different fandoms and different things that she thinks are great. She says, societally, feminine interests are tied to vanity, emotion, and excess. Watching women fall in love in beautiful dresses is one of my favorite pastimes, whether it be in a Jane Austen novel, the Bridgerton series, fantasies filled with princesses getting twirled in marble halls, or The Sound of Music. My love for artists like Taylor Swift and the joy I find in decoding her song lyrics, analyzing her fashion moments, and scream singing in the car does not detract from my intelligence. In society, soft femininity is judged to be weak. We've talked about this repeatedly. Recently, too, because we talked a lot about fandoms. Of course, with all of that, it is interesting that women being interested in something or liking something is thought of as childish. So when we talk about collecting dolls versus collecting action figures, am I right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Little bobbleheads versus a doll, Barbie doll, which is probably worth thousands of dollars if you have the right one from way back when. But it also can be seen that women's habits when it comes to stress is seen as different as well. In a research paper written by Frank Arena and Andrew Julius about gender differences in self-soothing, they write this: gender differences in coping styles have long been documented, with research consistently demonstrating that males and females exhibit distinct preferences in how they regulate stress and emotional discomfort. Historically, females are more likely to engage in emotion-focused coping strategies, while males gravitate toward problem-focused or distraction-based approaches. I don't know if it's me, I'm going to do both.
Yeah, I feel like I have spurts where I want to like actively, physically do something.
Right.
And it makes me feel better. Yeah. But I can't depend on them. They kind of come out of nowhere.
I feel like you're more better at that than I am, because at least you're like productive when you do that.
Yeah.
As where I start something and just look at it and I'm like, I don't like this anymore.
Never mind.
You finish it out. I'm like, I quit. But anyway, they go on to talk about how the two genders, yes, this is very much heteronormative research here, binary, apologies, but we're going with what we have, and they're likely to do so. So they write, empirical findings suggest that females are more likely to engage in self-soothing behaviors than males, particularly those involving emotional self-talk and seeking internal reassurance. These behaviors align with the broader emotional socialization of girls, who are often encouraged to be introspective and emotionally expressive. The SCCS data show that female participants score higher on indices of cognitive self-soothing, including self-validating thoughts and visualizations of emotional safe spaces. And then they continue, males, on the other hand, may favor more physical or action-oriented self-soothing techniques, such as engaging in repetitive motion, e.g. pacing, fidgeting, physical withdrawal, or nonverbal gestures. These behaviors often reflect a cultural discouragement of overt emotional expression in boys and a preference for behavioral over cognitive or verbal processing of emotions. Notably, boys are often less likely to label these behaviors as coping or emotional regulation, contributing to their underreporting in self-assessment studies. This whole level, like, we need a whole conversation about how men don't participate, even though they're asked more.
Yeah.
They're focused more on, but they're like, nah, I don't want to be, and the underreporting, or not even understanding what they're reporting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Curious how video gaming might come to play in this, because I know we're going to talk about it more later, but that's one that I find that I go to when I'm stressed. But I know for a lot of people it's the opposite. But I just feel like a lot of men in my life, it's almost kind of a turn off my brain physical thing that they do. So I'm just curious.
Now you say that, my partner will be like, after a hard day's work, he's like, I'm just going to play a little of so-and-so game.
Yeah. Because it does like kind of involve a lot of times almost a fidget
Yeah.
Or something like with your fingers type of response. So just curious.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But as this article above says, I'm thinking for men, I don't know, emotional regulation is for the weak, the marginalized. Is that what I'm hearing? But I guess with all of that, it's actually a very mature response to be able to regulate. Again, from that same paper, they say the adaptive potential of self-soothing is evident across genders. Studies have shown that individuals, regardless of gender, who actively and consciously engage in self-soothing report better mood regulation, improved sleep quality, and higher resilience in the face of chronic stress. Gender-specific training in self-soothing techniques tailored to comfort with certain types of behavior could therefore enhance coping capacity for both males and females. So this is one of those things of like, hey, it's not bad. Emotional regulation? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why we've felt the need to turn it into a weakness, but yeah.
And as an added side point, they also talk about the fact males are more likely to participate in negative self-soothing or external behaviors like aggression and drug use when their self-soothing tactics are not working. So I've seen this throughout the different articles and columns talking about drug use as a self-soothing technique as well as use of alcohol. And they're using this as if it's two separate things. So their definitions of self-soothing is definitely along the lines of like, calm down, talk to yourselves, give yourself a pep talk. But that's not always what we're seeing. But with that, men are more likely to do the more aggressive things. And women who, quote, employ verbal and introspective forms of self-soothing, they have higher levels of emotional literacy. Again, I would call that a maturity.
Yep. Sounds mature to me.
Might just be oversimplifying things. But I think that's the other part that we don't talk about emotional literacy. And we're not getting into this here and what that looks like and how that is really beneficial in life.
Yes. And your relationships with other people. It's very helpful.
Which we need, apparently. I don't believe that, but whatever. Moving on. So again, we previously talked about some of our anxious habits and whether or not they're actual trauma responses as well. We're not getting too deep into that, but BT dubs, they are. Some of these things, they are. And they do overlap. I'm not going to get into all of it, but they talk about how we react to things. So whether it's being uncomfortable when the door knocks, I am not opening that damn door. No, I will talk to you through the ring and tell you to leave. And I have a great loud dog to help me with this level.
Peaches is good for that.
She is, because she sounds fierce.
She does.
But that's our trauma response. Yeah, it is. Being too close to people, being around too many people, not want to sit in a restaurant with your back exposed. I hate that. So there's a lot of things. But one of the things they talk about in this, as well as a trauma response, but also, whatever, is about comfort foods and overeating. That does not always go hand in hand. And I feel like that needs to be said. But a lot of the research does kind of overlap it, because when we talk about stress eating and binging versus comfort foods, there are different levels, obviously. But they do have that as an overlap of response to trauma and stress and anxiety. And I have several foods I call comfort foods. I have this weird taco salad that my mom made as a kid. Thanks, Rice-A-Roni, for this recipe. I'm pretty sure it came from the back of the box of a Rice-A-Roni, because you add Rice-A-Roni to it. Not a sponsor. BT dubs. I made you this before.
It was great.
It's so delicious. Like, it doesn't make sense how good it is, but I'm like, I like this. I guess it's like Mexican rice and
it's very
white people
savory,
taco.
Salty,
cheesy. Get some tomatoes and salsa and greens all up in there. It's really good. Then I call something my country hodgepodge that I grew up eating, and that's a family thing, which is a mess of green beans, creamed corn, macaroni, cheese, and cornbread, and you just goop it up. And it sounds goopy, by the way. It's like, it makes that goopy sound, but it's delicious, and it makes me very happy. But it reminds me a little bit of like the old school days when I was first learning to love country food. because that was not my typical foods. Right. And then my go-to rice with kimchi or rice and soy sauce. And that's it.
That sounds great.
Really delicious. But these are comfort foods to me where I feel like overstressed and I just want something familiar. Right? And then when it comes to, do you have any? What are your comfort foods? I know you have some. I know you have ritual foods. That's different from comfort foods.
Yeah. And I feel like mine I go through phases, as with a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. But macaroni and cheese is pretty high up there. And right now, ramen is my big one. I can't tell if it's because it's easy to make. Like, I don't know. I did enjoy ramen as a kid. I've always loved ramen. But right now, I'm in some kind of ramen phase.
I love ramen, and I loved it as a kid as well. My parents would get very upset because my chunky self eating all the pasta. They're like, the whole like Atkins diet was coming out then. Everybody's like, calm down. But I would eat, like my friend and I would eat it in so many different ways. And two of our favorite ways were when we would drain most of the water out, crunch it out the hell out of it, and then just put a mess of cheese. And it was just... And then the seasoning packet. And that's the entirety of the meal.
Oh, wow. So you didn't cook it?
No, you did cook it. I'm sorry. You cooked it, drained out the water.
Oh, gotcha.
Then you mix the seasoning. Not all the seasoning either, by the way. Because it was too much without the water.
With little water, yeah.
And then lots of cheese. And that was the entire meal.
That's one of my favorite things about ramen is you can do whatever. All kinds of stuff.
And then we thought we were being real chefs when we took instant rice and put it at the bottom and then put the noodles on top of it. Carbs upon carbs upon carbs.
Oh, no, I think you were onto something there.
I'm just saying, like we thought we were doing real chef culinary arts here.
Wait till someone hears about this.
Which Asian people do it anyway to get the saltiness of it. Anyway, whatever. I was real Asian then. But yeah, there's a lot to that with comfort foods. Like this is something that I remember. And yes, I still eat. We talked about Chef Boyardee. That became a comfort food for me with all the like cheesiness. I got sick of it not too long ago, so I can't eat it right now. But I'll probably come back to it. And again, when it comes to comfort foods being actually comforting, there's research papers on this. In fact, so many ranging from the obesity levels to stress levels to social levels of comfort foods. And many also talk about how mood affects the food. High stress could equal more sugar or processed foods. Soft serve is my weakness when I feel sad. I just want soft serve. I just had an incident in which the soft serve fell into my hands because it was not frozen enough. And it was one of those sad Eeyore moments. It just flopped over and I just stared at it. And I was like, do I cry or not cry?
That is rough. You needed your comfort soft serve and it fell. Oh, no.
They made it right and got me another one and put it in a bowl this time. But I was like, but why? But of course, with all of that, when it comes to comfort, it's more complex than this. When it comes to food and eating disorders or just eating and stress, there's a lot more to this, of course. And here's a bit from adventurewoman.com. They write, one comfort food study notes that these culinary preferences lie at the intersection of taste, nostalgia, and loneliness. Another research project looking into comfort foods describe how comfort food, quote, brings up associations of positive relationships and make us feel less lonely. The emotional satisfaction of comfort food ties into our attachment styles or the ability to form healthy emotional bonds, as well as the positive emotional association we formed as children. That is, a grilled cheese sandwich tastes good and reminds us of a happy childhood, and chicken soup makes us feel loved and cared for. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about comfort food. There's a lot of it is nostalgic. A lot of it was yearning or missing something. And then today, remembering something. So I've talked about my connection with food and my connection with Korean culture and not remembering much, but my taste buds remember it. And after I process the traumatic moment of remembering it, wanting more of that. And I think that's something that this article talks a little more about. And I think that's something that we kind of miss when all we see is obesity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it just makes sense. I remember during the pandemic, we had a whole episode on, we weren't maybe being able to hang out with people and share these meals with people, and missing those things of that you just have maybe once a year. But it does. I mean, I think that's like spot on. It reminds you of this time in your life when somebody was caring for you or made this for you, or it felt simpler in a way or something. That makes complete sense to me. And it makes sense to me a lot of times on the other podcasts I do, Savor, whenever we talk about the pandemic, so many what I would call kind of traditional comfort foods were selling more during the pandemic because people wanted that. They wanted the comfort of that. And so they were buying more mac and cheese. They were buying more Chef Boyardee.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, yes, there again is that negative, the adverse of food as well. There was another research paper written by A. Janet Tamiyama, Mary F. Dahlman, and Alyssa S. Eppel, in which the research had a whole level of detail with obesity and stress eating and why this is a thing. And to put it simply, those with the high stress ate more. They write, quote, "We found as hypothesized that the high stress group had significantly greater BMI and sagittal diameter and reported greater eating after stressful events. In response to acute lab stressors, to high stress group showed a blunt cortisol response, lower diurnal cortisol levels, and greater suppression in response to dexamethasone." AKA being stressed out and eating too much can be unhealthy, but again, so are other types of stress-related activities. So yes, we have often talked about stress eating and all of these things, but also could it be a look at what we see as bad versus good in food? And anything excessive is bad.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is interesting because I completely believe this is true. But in my case, when I get stressed, I eat less. But it's still unhealthy.
Right.
Because I'm not getting enough vitamins. And when I do eat, I'm eating ramen, which I love, but it's, salt and ultra processed.
Right.
So that's also a part of it too.
Right. And there's this level of conversation in like bipolar disorder, even when people are on specific levels, that some people binge eat and some people stop eating. So there's extremes of that in that own, like one diagnosis, which is it's much a spectrum when it comes to that as well. But it's interesting in that conversation as well, because it's all about control. So whether it's overeating or not eating enough is still a conversation of control and stress. And I do the same thing, actually. I don't eat when I'm upset. If I'm depressed, I'm not going to be eating. You have to force me to eat. If I'm sad, I'm definitely not eating. And if I'm upset, my stomach is tore up. I actually have a lot of stomach issues when that happens. If I'm bored, I'm eating.
Yeah. If I'm with people, that's my best bet. I will eat around people.
Yes. Again, this, as the Adventure Women article talks about, they talk about sharing comfort foods or traditions. It's also a way to bond and share your traditions, family stories. Like, again, I have shared my foods specifically because I think it's interesting and it's weird. And I always preface it with, this is an odd recipe, but I love it. You should try this with me. And they do. And you do. I make them. I have people come over for Chinese New Year's, Lunar New Year, so I can share Korean traditions that I want to remember or I want to bring into my own life because I've already missed so much of that. And I want to do that with people I love. I'm very stressed out during that time, but I get really excited. Also, I don't eat a lot when I'm around people and make the food. It's weird.
My mom's that way. She gets so like hung up on, I should have done this or I should have done this or I didn't add enough salt or all of that stuff, which makes complete sense to me.
I'm that way. But it's about sharing my culture, my comfort, my need for you to see a part of me in that food, as well as remembering some things that I feel like I missed when it felt simpler. Even if it was traumatic, there was moments that it felt simple in that pie. So I think that's a lot to what comfort food is. But another way that I don't do, but I know someone else does, is the need to cry or to be heartbroken. So you watch sad movies. That is your comfort habit. Anney, I absolutely equate this to you, and now Marissa, to be honest, because I was like, what is happening? Because our Soup and Sadness festival for your specific birthday was quite funny to me. And I need to know why.
I guess I like it in a controlled environment. I like knowing that it's coming and that I can kind of prepare myself. And I like having that moment of, I know I've said it before, but a lot of times I feel like I can go to a funeral, I won't cry at all. Mm-hmm. But when I watch like a sad movie or play a sad game, then what I didn't cry at that funeral, I can cry during that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything you say does like it hits spot on to the research, essentially. So this is some of the benefits from verywellminded.com. They say you get to experience sadness without anxiety. So they talk about how studies show exploring responses to sad stories. They discovered that participants experience just as much sadness when recalling a tragic personal event as when they watched tragic TV and movies. However, there's one noteworthy difference between recalling a personal tragedy and watching a fictional tragedy. Participants experienced significantly more anxiety when they recalled a personal tragedy than they did when they watched tragic shows and movies. This may be key to our ability to enjoy sad fictional stories. If a sad event happens in real life, it's often accompanied by anxiety because we know that we'll continue to deal with the impact of that event. On the other hand, we aren't anxious about consuming a sad story because the emotions we experience through it won't continue to have an impact on us after we're done watching, reading, or listening. So it's being able to have that moment without the prolonged, oh my God, what do I do with the aftermath?
Right. Like, oh, I have to deal with all of this fallout right now. Instead, it's, here I go, I had this cathartic moment, and now I can close the chapter on whatever it was, or, just continue to think about The Last of Us and how much I'm sad about it, but in a way that doesn't like impact my life in a serious, I have to make a decision about XYZ way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also scientific. Like these things are not just the psychological benefits, but scientific, physical evidence. It says it really helps to let those tears out. So here's a refinery.com article written by Maggie Zhao. She's talking to psychologist Nancy Sacarno. Points to a study that found that watching traumatic films can potentially boost pain tolerance and feelings of group bonding. To simplify that a little, consuming depressing content can actually make you feel good because of increased endorphins. Who would have thought, she says. So when we're wanting to consume traumatic content when we're in a low mood, our brains are essentially chasing those feel-good endorphins. And it further explains in psychologyspot.com that these increased endorphins actually can help endure pain. And the aftermath is that stress relief, that euphoria or calm, and how you can let it end with that movie. Or if you're Anney, start the process again.
Go again. Another ride.
Does it immediately. Let's do it again. Let me do it again. And honestly, I try to find a reason a person like me actually can't emotionally take this type of pain. I remove myself pretty heavily in these shows. But I wasn't able to find something really readily available. Perhaps I'm not looking for it correctly, but I did find something that did explain a bit in relation to horror and violent movies, which I'm okay with those, actually. But it felt like it kind of answered my tragic.
Right. Your aversion to tragedy.
Yeah, my aversion to tragedy. So one of the reasons they write in highsensitiverefuge.com is that being able to let go of that feeling after the film is really hard for me to do. So they say, quote, HSP or highly sensitive people are, and I'm not necessarily saying that I'm that, but they're just explaining these types of reactions, are likely to feel the emotional effects for a long time. We may even find ourselves feeling those painful emotions years later when something reminds us of the movie we watched. Everyone else might be ready to move on to another activity, dinner after the movie, stuff like that. But the HSPs still feels those lingering thoughts and emotions. And I will say, for many shows that I even love, like that are not like sad, Parks and Rec, which again is one of my comfort shows, which we're talking about in a minute. I can't watch the ending of the final episode without feeling like I'm feeling abandoned or being abandoned. I do that with many, many shows. I will not watch the finale. I can't. It traumatizes me. When Anney didn't tell me a whole world dies and everybody dies, I had to put that on pause because I was like, wait, no, you can't get me like this. Because it's like watching in emotionally fraught movies like this, I feel like this emptiness, and I feel this way for hours and sometimes days, if not years, if not, like I still am haunted by Land Before Time.
It's a haunting.
How dare you leave me in this emptiness with this dude trying to find his family. I'm going to cry about it now as I'm thinking about it. Okay. It's not good in Samland. Like they feel, if I don't like watching an emotionally fraught movie, again, does that same thing. I cannot let go of the feeling of grief. It's scarring. So I don't, again, it's not horror movies and not even violence. There are moments that are like, I can't watch this violence. If it's set in, especially if it's set in realistic scenarios, things that I may have experienced that are too similar, especially. So I can't have, I could never watch The Wire because it was during the time that I was working with teenage kids in scenarios like this, just in rural Georgia or like suburbia Georgia or Atlanta, Georgia, like things like that. Just, it was too close. So I would have to have people tell me, no, you can't watch that. It's going to get you. And I didn't find much about, because like they were giving all the great recommendations to watch sad movies, and I'm like, no, thank you. How dare you? That horror movie, I was like, how the dare you, Anney? How dare you not tell me what was going to happen with this kid? I was traumatized on that one too.
Well, I have, in defense of me, I was expecting you to procrastinate, and I had never seen it before.
That's true. That was that one. You're like,
she actually watched that before I got to tell her. I did know you were going to have thoughts about it.
I did. I was like, why would you do this to me? Y'all, I have a lot of feelings. A lot of feelings. I'm traumatized. But yeah, I find that interesting that the two different levels of like, because sometimes I do enjoy a good cry.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be really calculated.
Yeah, I feel like in my group, I usually get made fun of as the one that likes angst. So it's interesting to me that there's so much research about that kind of.
And on the positive note, it's like on the positive note more than anything else. Right.
I have to say though, like, I don't know what the correct word for this is, but maybe this isn't it, but I like to feel the feelings. So after The Last of Us 2 ends, I've played it a million times. It stays with me for like a day. It doesn't go away. And I kind of like, it's miserable, but I kind of like it because I get to sit there and be like, wow, that was real sad.
I feel like you also like to be alone so you can really stew in it.
I do, because I don't, I mean, you've seen me cry. You've seen me sob. But I don't like to completely let go in front of people when it comes to like, let me cry my heart out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it does happen anyway, but I think like the hardest I ever cried at The Last of Us 2 was when right after people left, and then I really let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. That's the thing. I was like, I know she needs to be alone. When she says she's going to have to take time alone, I'm like, all right, she needs those moments. Unless you're Ben Bowling and then you come up and be like, hey, what's going on?
That was an unfortunate coworker and friend of the show, Bim Bolin, accidentally walked in when I was in the midst of my, like, I need to be alone and cry one time.
Yeah. But, you know, and we're not going to talk about this. We've talked about it before because we over here love some horror movies, and we've talked about that. We've talked about horror tropes and all of these and how it also get those endorphins going. I do enjoy a good horror movie.
Yeah.
I definitely have to see those through because I need resolution. It can't be haunted. It will haunt me. Just the possibilities of. And then some of those movies haunt you anyway because they're just don't have conclusions or they make you confused. But at least I need to see the end. So I don't feel the same way about that. Unless it involves like killing dogs or animals. Y'all do too much with that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I do want to hear if you go see Good Boy.
Good Boy.
Because I'm traumatized already.
I'm very interested to see that movie, which, listeners, if you don't know, is a horror movie told from the point of view of the dog. So, you know, like when the dog starts barking at something and you don't see anything, kind of that whole deal. I'm very interested to see it because they have to know that if they spend a whole movie getting you to connect with this dog.
Oh, people will burn the theater down.
I mean, maybe knock on wood, I just don't think they're going to kill off the dog.
I would think. What also gets me in this, though, is when I see a dog's perspective or a pet's perspective of losing a human and they're waiting for that human.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm tearing up again. I'm going to cry in an episode that has nothing to do with this episode. But also it gets me too.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. That is miserable. That is really miserable. So I plan on seeing it. I will report back.
I probably would never will, but you will report back. But coming back to comfort series and comfort movies, I thought we would talk about series specifically and watching movies because we're not talking necessarily about crying all the time. Because I think that is an interesting perspective of that is a way of self-soothing is so many emotions happen. So you need an excuse to be able to connect your emotions to a fictional ideal. But also just like the use of comfort movies to calm you down. For me, I have my go-to movies. I feel overwhelmed or sad. Again, Ratatouille's always been there. Parks and Rec, New Girl, Supernatural was there for a little while. I cannot watch the finale on that one. Not because it leaves me empty. It does. But also it was bad, so in my opinion. But now K-pop Demon Hunters has now become a part of that as well on my list. And I think these are really, really like just effective and distracting. But what are your types of comfort shows that are not just for crying?
Well, like comfort foods, they kind of rotate. I would say since the pandemic, Star Wars that's a steady. That one's there. The original trilogy. Anything else outside of that, no. But the original trilogy, very comforting. I know it's changed The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. Not the show, the game.
Yeah.
Because I know where the game goes. I think I know where the show's going to go, but I don't know for sure. So that's kind of a level of tension that the game doesn't have for me. Right now, SpongeBob. It used to be How to Train Your Dragon for a while, but now it's SpongeBob.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I haven't watched SpongeBob in a long time, but having a grand old time.
Is Poker Face going to be on your list?
I do love Poker Face. I watch Poker Face so much. Like rewatch.
Oh, you have?
Because I'm trying to like... back when I was trying to guess who it was. And so the same thing happened with Only Murders in the Building. I would rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. I also rewatched Adolescence a ton, which I don't know what that says about me, but I guess I kind of like the puzzle pieces and trying to figure out things. That distracts me. That's a really good distraction for me.
Okay, yeah, that makes it. That could be a whole conversation about like true crime as well. Those two going, but that's another episode that we can do. We're piling in some episodes here that I won't remember. But so why do we do this? So according to psychology.com, there are so many reasons. Maybe it's about reliving treasured moments or a time. So I do have those moments of like, I remember watching this at this time and it was a good time. I remember watching Supernatural, finding something that I actually liked and was invested in and had a long time to do so, but I did it very quickly during the pandemic was a delight. Or it could be that it's familiar and you know what to expect. And I say that a lot. I'm like, I know, even if it's dramatic. So I've done this with a lot of K-dramas, because K-dramas just put in random murders and kidnappings for no reason in a sitcom. And you're like, what is happening? I know I can fast forward it because I know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has become a new thing for me. And there are several K-dramas who are on my list too. I just didn't add it, but it's there. Or I know when I can get up and do things without being interested in. So that is something for me. Or even what they call the Mr. Rogers effect. And I wanted to include this. So again, this is from psychology.com because I've never heard of this. And I was like, huh. So this says, again, the article is called Why We Watch the Same Shows Over and Over Again. That's the title. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. They say, at the beginning of every show, Mr. Rogers went through the same routine of changing into his cardigan sweater and around the house sneakers while singing the same reassuring words. He did this to provide the necessary stability and comfort to his young viewers. According to research by Christelle Antonia Russell and Sydney Levy, repetition works for adults as well. Knowing what will happen bestows order and safety, especially during times when our lives feel uncomfortable and less controlled. Mr. Rogers, you really were something.
Yeah.
We love you. R.I.P. And they go on to list so much more, including seeing how we've grown since we first watched it. So again, that kind of like developing in the show, whether it's you're figuring that out, going back to be like, oh yeah, or finding something new, or I remember what this felt like and now I'm here type of conversation. Again, not wanting to choose. I think that's an interesting one. There's too many things, and I've seen this. I don't know. I don't know what I want to judge. Never mind. I'm not going to pick anything new. I'm not sure about this one. I'll just go back to this.
Right. Yeah.
I guess we all do that because we're like, oh my God, what are these bad choices? It's just a remake of remake of remake anyway. Did I sound really crotchety just now? I hope
you
so.
You did.
Oh, good. Or maybe it's the connection you feel to the characters. And this kind of goes back to our own episodes about fandoms and parasocial relationships in fandoms and kind of like whether it's good or bad. But you do feel like you have an established relationship because you know their personality. You know them like no one else does within the same show.
Yes. And as I've discussed before, I can relate more easily through a fictional character that I feel like I know than I can through my own self, because I'm like, well, they're so strong. And if they're feeling this weak, then they're not weak because I know they're strong. I have all this proof and all these other characters that think so.
Yes. And I was thinking that we could put it in a moment where we talk about when we lose those characters, whether it's because the real life people or the writers or such are horrible, turn out to be horrible. Because I used to love Glee. Like because I love singing and I love musicals and I love all those things, but it's so bad. To me, it's like hauntingly tainted. I don't know how else to put that. But like what happens when you lose those and what happens when you're trying to like reconnect. And for some people, we know that they can separate the character from the people. I cannot do that. For the life of me, if something is ruined, it is forever ruined. But we're not going to get into that. That's a whole different case. Because like, what do you do when your self-soothing is no longer soothing? That's a whole different conversation. But being able to return to my favorite characters who get into these silly hijinks, it is comforting. It is comforting to know that their goofiness, their over-the-topness, like, is able to be able to be like, you're goofy. I like you.
Yeah. And it's nice. It's nice. You know it's coming. I'll laugh at the same joke I've seen a million times because I know it's coming. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's so, I love that.
And something you mentioned earlier that we're not getting into because it's not in, like, it is and it isn't in my world in this level of like, and it should be because I do it often. It was gaming. You were talking about that earlier as a form of self-soothing and whether or not it's very gendered. We already know because we talked about the world of gaming when it comes to marginalized people and how oftentimes they are ostracized. But at the same time, they make their own communities and we love it. I do eventually want to come back and coming to have a conversation about cozy gaming and how it's kind of been so commercialized that it's being ruined by industry and not allowing for enough independent artists to come in, as well as still feminizing and infantilizing what it is.
Mm-hmm.
and the gaming industry is doing that as well. The corporates, not necessarily the individual, but the corporations are like, we'll just make it a cute game that has nonsensical things. That'll be enough, which is not true. Which is not what people want necessarily. Sometimes, yes. Most of the times, no. But that's the whole thing. But what were your thoughts on using games as a self-soother?
I find it incredibly self-soothing. I know we've talked about it before. A lot of my friends would vehemently disagree. But I just feel like it gives me a task and I can complete it. And this is where I know a lot of people get hung up, but I feel like I'm pretty good at it. So it distracts me, and then I have to focus on, I have to kill this zombie before it kills me. It kind of takes me out of everything else because I'm legitimately a little scared and don't want to die in this game. So I have to focus on it. And so it is a really good way of kind of turning off all of the other things that are making me panic. But also, if I'm playing a good survival horror game, then you're getting that feeling of, I think, releasing some of those tensions that you have pent up. So, I mean, even when I was a kid, I really liked it because it is something you sort of have to, I think for me, it's something I have to focus on. I know some people use it in almost the opposite way where it's like you can turn off your brain and just do something. But I like I have to focus on it. And it gives me something to do with my hands, and it gives me a sense of satisfaction, like I'm accomplishing something.
Yeah. Well, so because you did mention that, I was like, oh, we didn't really talk about it. And again, this probably could be a whole other episode in itself. But looking up verywellminded.com, they talk about how video games can relieve stress, and they compared it to meditative interventions. So here's what they say. One study compared the stress-relieving effects of playing a simple casual video game to the effects of participating in a mindfulness meditation session. Both groups experienced significant reductions in stress following the interventions. So that's really interesting to me that they actually decided, hey, what if we took two things that seem to be opposite?
Mm-hmm.
And because like what we think of with the like games and like having to do all these things, that actually could be one and the same in the stress reliever. They say, while participants in the mindfulness meditation group experienced a slightly greater stress relief, the researchers suggested that the effects were very similar. Given the popularity of video games, researchers suggest that these tools can be effective interventions for people coping with stress. So, of course, it's not going to be one-on-one. It's not going to be the same. But the fact that the effects are pretty similar says a lot because we know more people are going to see gaming as a legit activity, as where meditation is crunchy, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's almost hard to describe, but I do think that's true, especially if you played the game multiple times, then you just know what to do. Like you're not thinking about it almost. Right. You're just doing it. And in my favorite cases, you're getting a beautiful story while you're doing it.
Yes. And then they even talk about co-op games. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can see that, but I also see the fights.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
They talk about it does help stress levels, but at the same time,
yeah, I can see that one backfiring.
Overcooked makes me want to throw things.
I have seen it backfire. Yeah.
But yeah, so with all of that, there are great benefits in these types of self-soothing that we've talked about. There's also negatives. So with that, they can be along the lines of self-care, new hobbies, and can be wonderful with help of therapy like DBT or dialectical behavior therapy, which they do talk a lot about with self-soothing and different other forms of therapy in general. Again, we're not talking necessarily about stimming or fidget toys, which have now been put into practice for many people with maybe ADHD, autism, bipolar, any of these things. Like they are really useful. And they actually can be really helpful for specific timing. So they had this example from positivepsychology.com of something that happened during the pandemic because people weren't able to get hugs. So they write, they found that both self-soothing touch in the study, most participants choose to place their right hand on their heart and their left hand on their abdomen while focusing on the rising and falling of breathing. and receiving a hug from another person were equally effective at lowering stress levels. Therefore, when other people are not available to hug, self-soothing touch could be a source of much-needed comfort and reassurance. And then there's also this conversation about the butterfly hug, and then also being a burrito.
I've heard of that one.
The burrito blanket. But like they were using this during a time where people really felt like they were missing out, and how it could be really, really helpful in these like interesting, very, very typical touch methods, breathing methods, and helping you to cope through not being able to have physical touch, which some people need.
Yeah.
Which, you know what, I think everyone needs, just some people need it a lot more excessively.
Right. Yeah. Or just need it a lot more.
Okay, so I said excessively. I guess you know where I land. But again, with all of that, there can be downsides when we talk about self-soothing. As we talked about earlier and many times throughout, that the beginning of these habits can be borderline addictive, obsessive, such as the unhealthy eating habits, drug and alcohol consumption, harming yourself. So like being able to stem is great, but if it goes excessive to truly harming yourself, that's a whole different level as well. And there are several groups who have recommended toolkits, an actual toolkit that you can get, or you can create yourself, or you can get with the help of a therapist that helps self-soothe. And here's a suggestion from University of Miami. They say one way to acquire self-soothing skills is to create a toolkit. The box might include objects or reminders of how to soothe all 5 senses. Comforting smells such as scented candles, essential oils, or body lotion. Pleasant taste such as herbal teas or favorite snacks. Soothing things to touch such as favorite sweaters, wrap, or stress ball. Comforting sights such as photos of loved ones, pets, or favorite places. And soothing sounds as a favorite piece of music or guided meditation track. When I was getting really, really isolated and getting feeling antsy because I was stuck in the house during the pandemic, like we couldn't go anywhere, I would actually turn on videos of scenic views with bubbling brooks very loudly with a window open. Like I had to do that for myself because I was going stir crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I remember I read something during the pandemic, which was like, if you're an extrovert, because everybody was worried about us extroverts during the pandemic, put on photos of what you used to do. That was a mistake. What what I would say worked for me was I would put on like a background.
Yeah.
And I would put on new music. I loved that. And I would try to like make new foods. So I do think I think this is a great idea, but also tailor it to yourself, because I think there are some ways that I remember looking at pictures of me and my friends and just being like, this is not, I'm just sad I can't see them right now.
Some of it does not do well. It's kind of like when I want to plan for a trip and I'm like, I want to go to these places. And they're like, I can't.
Yeah. And obviously it's different now. We're not in a pandemic. So I can go see my friends. It doesn't have the same weight of being like, I can't see them right now. But yeah, definitely tailor it to yourself.
To what you need. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are some other suggestions that they give you from wondermind.com in which they say, make breathing a thing. So we've talked about box breathing, different techniques in breathing. For me, sometimes breathing too much gives me panic attacks, so I don't do that necessarily. I just take one very deep breath and sigh and do that weird mummy groan, which Annie used to make fun of me for.
Yeah.
I still do it sometimes. It came out recently and I forgot. Take a walk mission. So they talked about like finding places to go. She specifically talks about getting yourself like, go find a flower, go get to this thing, or walk to this part to get a snack or something. Do it safely, of course. Again, blanket burrito mode. I love that. I don't like that because I don't like to be suffocated, but a lot of people need that space. So, I have you scream burrito me before when I felt like I was too anxious, and so he would just roll me up in a blanket. That's weird, isn't it? That's a weird comment, but it worked.
You know what? I saw somebody do this at Dragon Con. We've talked about how Dragon Con can be overwhelming. There's a lot of people. Much so. And we saw somebody, I'm assuming this is what she was doing, but she just wrapped herself up in a blanket like a burrito. It's like, okay, she needs a moment. She needs a moment.
Get yourself a little hoodie. And they talk about like move in whatever way feels good to you. Dance, don't dance, jump, scream real loud. Sometimes a good scream is nice. Do something mindless, a puzzle. A puzzle's really great. Like
Puzzles are good.
Really gotten into those lately. There's so many things that you could do. And once again, there is the plus and there is the negative, in which you have to be aware that any extreme can be dangerous. And sometimes being too isolated is dangerous.
Yep.
I say as I look up onto space. Obviously, there's a lot to this conversation. And I did, like I said, interchange the terms of like comfort habits, which doesn't exist. I made that one up apparently. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it should be. But anyway, comfort habits and self-soothing. Again, it could be such a big conversation when we talk about what that looks like. What could be dangerous for some people. Taking a walk could be dangerous for some people. Running, we know, can be dangerous for groups of people. But we're not necessarily focused on that. But again, these are so many subjects that we can talk to. Don't worry. I'm sure we're going to revisit some of these specific topics at hand. And of course, we would love to hear about your comfort habits. What do you do? What are your comfort foods? Have you gotten into making sourdough? Do you love sourdough bread? Someone tell me how to make a sourdough mix.
Please, someone tell Samantha how to do it, because then I get to try some, hopefully. Yes, listeners, we would love to hear from you about this. You can email us at hello@stuffinevertoldyou.com. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a new place to get merch, Cotton Bureau, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.